fly around a room knows how difficult it can be, and it's also difficult to study flies as they fly freely. But in this instrument, we can actually tether them to a fine pin and measure using infrared light and custom detectors.
By attaching a fruit fly to a thin tungsten wire using a tiny drop of glue, the researchers can control the fly. As long as its feet are touching something, it knows it's stationary. But take away the paper and
you trick it into flying so that it thinks it's flying through the room, but it's actually stationary.
Then they turn on the simulator.
What you're seeing is a panoramic display that's made up of several hundred light-emitting diodes that creates an image that the fly looks at as it flies stuck to its little pin. And we can configure this device so that when the fly tries to steer to the left, the world that it sees would move to the right and vice versa. So it actually thinks that it's flying. It's sort of like the fly's playing a little video game.
With the high-speed camera running, the fly navigates the virtual landscape the way it sees the world. It fixes on vertical lines and avoids solid objects.
Because the fly is stationary, one can get very, very nice images of the wings using high-speed video in order to understand how the wing motion translates into aerodynamic forces.
A so-called wing beat analyzer also captured the rhythm of the strokes. The mechanism of flies in flight was finally discovered. Fruit fly wings do a combination of high-speed flapping and rotation at the same time.
These sorts of flight arenas were essential in understanding the precise wing motion that flies use as they fly, the way that they flap their wings back and forth to generate enough aerodynamic forces to stay in the air, and how they change that pattern of wing motion to steer and maneuver once they're in the air.
The wing cuts through the air at a steep angle, producing a so-called leading-edge vortex. Miniature tornadoes are formed on top of the wing, creating low pressure, and the normal air pressure on the underside pushes the wing up. The second lifting force comes from the way the fly flips its wings at the end of a stroke. It's like a baseball with backspin. Finally, there is something called wake capture. Each time the wing flaps, it catches the moving air from its last stroke, giving it even more lift than if it were moving through still air.
Excellent. Thank you for watching the Flight Museum of Seattle.